It is time to begin the minister's Bible class, and so good evening. And we're glad that you've taken from your schedule to be here this evening. I'm going to assume that most of you are aware of the flooding that is going on up in the Midwest, in Nebraska and Iowa. In that area, you may have, you may have relatives or friends up in that area. And it's always pretty devastating to see that, and to see the pictures, and to see people's homes completely wiped out. And I look at that, and I try to imagine, and it's all imagination, because I have never experienced anything of that nature personally. And I try to imagine what that would be like for those people. So I'm interested, maybe just from your experience tonight. Is there anyone here who has ever experienced losing everything in a flood, a tornado, a fire, or something of that nature, hurricane, I guess? Anybody have any experience losing anything like that? All right, Jerry has. Anybody else? What is that like, Jerry?
Well, I was a child in our house.
Okay.
But I remember things that I had as a child that I no longer have. And it was very sad.
What was it that destroyed it? A fire? A fire. Okay. Yeah, there's nothing left after a fire. You don't go back and salvage anything much. I remember my grandparents lost their home in a fire. That's the closest that I can relate to. And it was a home that I had spent much of my childhood at, and to recognize that was destroyed and everything in it was devastating to me as a child. But I didn't understand or relate as an adult what that would be like. But interesting that so few of you have ever had that kind of experience, but you probably know someone who has. Most of us know someone who has lost everything to that kind of tragedy. And you've probably been some of those who may have been in the recovery process. I've helped families pick through their belongings, trying to find anything that would give them some connection to what was left behind. And it's a very, very sad situation. What kind of advice do you give people like that? How do you minister to people going through that? Anybody got any, maybe you've had some experience in ministering to people who's gone through that kind of tragedy, the loss of everything through one of these fire, flood, or tornado. What do you say to people like that? What do you do? Can you give us any insight to that? Anyone?
Jack,
Sir.
Back after the tornado up there in Joplin, we took a crew up there, and we were ground central, and we just basically try to weave our way through all the carnage and everything. We found a fellow that was just in shock, working on his house. And we worked with him all day. He probably said 3 words. And, there wasn't much I think we could say, but what we did was work alongside of him.
Okay.
And we probably got more out of it than he did because he was still in shock.
Yeah.
But I think the only thing, there wasn't really much to say because of the devastation.
Yeah.
And it was just like an easy, to me, when I looked at it, I was like, how can you even rebuild here? But he started from ground zero.
Excuse me.
And We just helped him start clearing debris in the basement, started in the basement. And there's a lot of work to be done, and as the day went on, we'd gotten up to level 1, and but just being there.
All right, your last statement, just being there. We call that the ministry of presence. Sometimes there is very little to be said, but being there, hugging them, touching them, crying with them, trying to share their burden as best as you can, even though you are very helpless, crying out for help. And whenever we see people go through things like that, I'm reminded of three things that, and you've heard me share this before, and it is nothing new because you know it as well. As I've walked with people, and this is a grief process that you're describing because there's a loss that has been experienced. Whether it's the loss of a family member or a friend or the loss of your home and everything that you've ever known, your loss of life, essentially. You're going through this grief process and you feel so helpless. And I go back to three things that I'm reminded of. That there are only three things important in life. And sometimes it takes tragedy or a crisis or even a perceived crisis to remind us of that. And that is our faith, our family, and our friends. Nothing else is really very important other than those three things, is there? And so you focus on those things when you're going through tragedy and you're trying to help others go through tragedy. I think we think about 9/11, just the expression 9/11. Everybody can give testimony of where they were at and how they learned about the terrorist attack and the devastation and the fear that came onto our country and our nation and literally our world, I suppose. And someone has said that there are three things that have to be understood. These are three additional things that I just shared with you. And someone said this, and I think this makes sense. That when you're going through those kind of tragedies or terrors or whatever, he says, number one, life is uncertain. Number two, evil is still present. And number three, God is still in control. Now, that'll preach, Darren. That'll preach, as we say. Life is still uncertain, evil is still present, and God is still in control. And so we have to be reminded of those things sometimes when we go through those kind of experiences. And so tonight I want to go to Psalm 28 because David here is focusing on those kind of things. And let me give a little sidebar before we get into the psalm. I know maybe some of you are getting psalm weary, and at least a couple have expressed that maybe. And so, but I like to tie things up neatly, and so I want to go through a couple more psalms till we get at least through Psalm 30. That seems like a good breaking point. And we'll take a vacation from Psalms for a while after we get there. But I do want to look at least a couple of Psalms before we get there, but then I want to promise those of you who may be a little psalm weary that we'll take a break and look at something else for a while. But tonight we're going to look at Psalm 28. And as I read this psalm, I find two expressions that I see David crying out. And we see this in so many of his psalms. And I'm finding that I am adopting it in my own prayer life. As I'm baptized in the Psalms, and as I've tried to help you to be immersed in them, the things that come out are these. He's crying out to God, "Hear me, God, hear me." And then secondly, he's saying, "Help me." And then a third thing, and in other Psalms especially, it's "Heal me." And I'm finding that's becoming a part of my own prayer life. You know, God, I want you to hear me. I want you to help me. I want you to heal me. And those are very personal, you know, selfish, I guess, or self-centered thoughts. But that's where I hear, that's what I see David doing. And Psalm 28 is sort of a prayer of rescue. It was written by David, and most believe during a time of some national crisis. And David had a lot of national crises, didn't he? It could have been during the time in which Absalom, his son, is leading a rebellion to try to overthrow him and kill him. It could have been a time of civil war, a time in which Saul is after him or whatever. But you can see his words here. It's a time of where he's crying out to God to help him and to hear him. And so let's look at the first few verses and make some observations. The first 6 verses, or first 5 verses maybe. He says, "To you I call, O Lord my rock. Do not turn a deaf ear to me. For if you remain silent, I will be like those who have gone down to the pit. Hear my cry for mercy as I call to you for help, as I lift up my hands toward your most holy place. Do not drag me away with the wicked, with those who do evil, who speak cordially with their neighbors but harbor malice in their hearts. Repay them for their deeds and for their evil work. Repay them for what their hands have done, and bring back upon them what they deserve. Since they show no regard for the works of the Lord and what his hands have done, he will tear them down and never build them up again." All right, let's pause just a moment here. As David, as I've mentioned, we see immediately he's crying out, "God, help me. Help me." I mean, how many hundreds of times have you said that? And hear me. Don't be silent. I want you to hear me. Sometimes we wonder, is God really hear me? You know, every once in a while I find myself as I'm praying to God, and I've shared this with you. My prayer, you know, my prayer life begins in the morning when I leave my house, between the house and the office here at the church building. It's that time in the pickup truck. It's 11 miles. It's during that time that I have disciplined myself to keep the radio off and to verbalize out loud my prayer to God for the day or for the week or for whatever is going on. And but I find myself, you know, so many times asking God, you know, to hear me. Because I begin to think, and I've thought about this more recently, I don't know why, but how many people are praying to God at the very same moment that I'm praying to God? You know, I think all of us, and I think this is good. You know, when I'm talking to God, I assume that he is focused on my prayer and that he is listening to me and that he is hearing me specifically what I'm saying, as we do here publicly and privately. But then I get to imagining that all over this world, there are millions and millions of people that are also talking to God probably at that very same moment in various means and venues. And I'm thinking, God, how can you know, how do you discern all that? How do you separate all that? How can you hear me and at the same time hear the millions of others that are also playing with you, praying to you, and have such greater needs in their life than I do? And then I just have to go back to understanding that God is a God of all powerful and all knowing and all presence, and that I have to trust him that he does hear me specifically. But maybe that's what David's feeling as well. I don't know. He's saying, help me, I'm calling to you, hear me, I'm crying to you, hope me. I'm confessing to you what's going on in my life. And then verse 4 and 5 are interesting. As he pleads with God here to punish the wicked. Who are the wicked? Verse 3 says, do not drag me away with the wicked, with those who do evil. Repay them for their deeds. Repay them for what their hands have done. Tear them down. Don't ever build them up again. And I ask the question, and I'm asking you the question, is it wrong to pray for the evil to be punished? Assume you're having a conversation with your neighbor, and that's the question they ask you. Tell me, is it wrong to pray for evil people to be punished? How would you answer them? Okay, one here. Yes, sir?
David did.
Okay. We see David doing it. So that sort of gives us permission, doesn't it? Someone else?
So be careful. Because, we always are dead.
Okay.
We know hopefully you know where you stand with the Lord and all, but be careful with
Okay. Be careful when you pray a prayer like that, because we're all sinners in that sense. What is the difference that David knew his own sins, and he's willing to confess those. What is the difference in what David sees himself and the ones he's praying for punishment? How does he perceive them?
sees him as having an evil heart, according to this.
All right. Say it again, Brent, I'm sorry.
He perceives him as having an evil heart.
Evil heart. Wicked. Is there evil people in this world? Are there wicked, evil people? I'm not talking about just generally bad folks. I'm talking genuine evil people. Absolutely. This weekend, when Pat and I are between coughs, we're watching a TV show, a documentary about a woman which you may or may recall. Her name was Elizabeth Diane Downs. Does anybody know who Elizabeth Diane Downs is? You know who she is? Anybody else know who Elizabeth Diane Downs is? There was a book written about her. I'm trying to remember the name of the book. I forgot now. Small Sacrifices. There was a movie given about her life. I think a movie made for TV. It was back in the 80s. Elizabeth Diane Downs had 3 small children. She was having an affair with a man, not her husband, and I think he must have been married as well or something. And he didn't want to be around children. He had told her he didn't want to be around. He didn't want to have any children, didn't want to be around children. And shot them all. How do you justify that? How do you rationalize that? How do you even comprehend that, a mother doing that? She killed one of them. One of them died. One of them became a paraplegic, I think, from the neck down, completely paralyzed the rest of his life. The other one survived, but is handicapped and, as you can imagine, mentally, emotionally, in every way beyond all that. She shot herself, too, by the way, in the arm. And then drove as slow as she could to the hospital and told the police that she was driving on the country road late at night. They were sightseeing. She had this ridiculous story. And a man came out of the ditch and waved him down and then stopped, and he shot the children in the back of the car and then shot her. And then she changed her story and Of course, her story was all full of holes, and they knew it. She was eventually convicted, by the way. And took place up in Oregon, and she was given life imprisonment plus 50 years to hopes that she would never get out. As far as I know, she's still in prison up in Oregon. But as I was looking at that, as I was observing that, the word that kept coming to my mind is, this woman is evil. That is evil to me. That is wicked. And it reminds us again, there are evil, wicked people in this world. And we see it. You can pick up today's newspaper probably and read about some others. Is it wrong to pray for those evil people to be punished? Well, David did. So that gives us some. So, amen. I want justice for these people. I've worked in prisons for many years, and I sat with lots of criminals and prisoners, murderers, rapists, et cetera, et cetera. And, I told them up front, I'm there to try to save their soul. But, if they kill my family, I want justice to take place. And you can disagree with me or whatever. I think I have biblical grounds for this. This is a conversation for another time. I am very much pro-death penalty, okay? But not everybody agrees with that, certainly not in our nation. And many Christians have debated that. But it's a matter of justice. And but nevertheless, there are evil people. And David had experienced some of that. He goes on to write or say, "Praise be to the Lord, for he has heard my cry for mercy. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and I am helped. My heart leaps for joy, and I will give thanks to him in song. The Lord is the strength of his people, a fortress of salvation for his anointed one. Save your people and bless your inheritance. Be their shepherd and carry them forever." David here is thanking God in advance for the answer to his prayer. You ever done that? You ever thank God in advance? You haven't got the answer that you wanted yet, but you thank God. Who else did that, by the way? Do you remember? Well, I'll tell you, Jesus did it. Does anybody remember on the occasion that Jesus thanked God in advance for the answer to prayer? I'll remind you. Lazarus, exactly. When he prayed to God that Lazarus would be resurrected, he says, "I thank you, God, in advance of what you're about to do." It hadn't happened yet, but he was already thanking God for it because he had confidence that God was going to respond. And that's what David's doing here. He's thanking God ahead of time. And that might be something for us to experience. We don't often do that. Notice the words that he uses to describe the Lord in this psalm. Let me just bring them out to you. Like verse 1, he calls the Lord my rock. Verse 7 and 8, he calls the Lord my strength. Verse 7, he's my shield. Verse 8, he's my refuge, my saving defense. Verse 9, he's my shepherd. And what is his response? As David is a believer, how does he respond to God's willingness to hear him, first of all, to help him in his struggles with evil people? Well, we find it in verse 7 where he says, "The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him." So first thing he does, he trusts God. Then he says, "My heart leaps for joy." His heart, he experiences joy. He has trust. He rejoices that God responds. And then finally he says, and I'll give thanks to him in song. And then he sings. His heart is trusting, his heart is joyful, his heart is praising God. And that's what we want to do when we receive the answers, or maybe in advance in our celebration of what God is going to do for us. It's always appropriate to turn to God, especially in personal crisis or even in a national crisis. In a tragedy like tornadoes in Joplin, many of you, I was able to go up there as well and seeing that tragedy, the devastation. It just breaks your heart, and it's hard to relate. But we can talk about the good that came out of that, and there was good that came out of that, and we know that, but still it doesn't make it hurt any less for those people involved especially. So Psalms 28, I think, is a prayer from David that certainly should build confidence in us and should give us motivation in our seeking God in advance. And maybe you'll find adopting in your prayer life, God help me. First of all, God hear me, God help me, and God heal me. And David found that to be true in his life. Let's pray. Almighty God, it's very difficult for us to communicate the awesomeness of your power and of your knowledge and of your love for us. Father, we are so small. We are so insignificant in so many ways. But we thank you for the role model that David has left for us. And Father, help us to emulate his faith and his trust in you. And may we find joy, and may we find rejoicing, and may we praise you for how you have heard us in our prayer, have helped us in our times of need, and have healed us in our sickness, whether it be sickness of body or sickness of mind or emotion or whatever. We just simply give you the praise for all things. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, we got 5 minutes, and we'll enter into our devotional time together.
bulletin about events coming up and those that are on our sick list. Does anybody have any other announcements that need to be announced? Closing prayer. Bo?
874. Jesus is Lord. The first song tonight is going to be I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, a little silver and a little gold, but in that city where the ransom will shine, in that bright land where it's that are purest gold. Don't think me poor or deserted or lonely. I'm not discouraged. I'm heaven bound. I'm just a pilgrim in search of a city. I want a mansion, a robe and a crown. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop, in that bright land where we'll never grow old, and someday yonder we'll never more wander, but walk the streets that are purest gold.
Pray with me, please. Our Heavenly Father, we're thankful for the day that you've blessed us with, this first day of the week, where we've been able to worship today and do so freely, and we're thankful for those who have served in ways of teaching classes, and for Brother Jack and the messages that he's brought to us today, and we just pray that these things have been done so in spirit and in truth. Right now, Lord, we're mindful of those around the world that are serving in mission fields, those that have gone away from loved ones, gone away from what's normal to them, what's home to them, so that they can spread your word and that they can serve those in foreign countries and in difficult situations, and oftentimes even putting their life on the line. And just help us to pray for them each day, to always be mindful of that, and to realize just how fortunate we are to be able to worship in the country that we do. We're thankful for the body that we have here. We're thankful for those new families that have placed membership, the Keene family and the Keith family and the Venable family, and their desire to serve here. And we just pray that you'll bless each of their efforts, and that you'll bless us as a whole, so that we can encourage each other, edify each other, and strive to be more like Christ each day. We know there are many in this family that are struggling spiritually, those that choose not to be here very often, and those that choose to have different priorities. And we pray that somehow we can influence them and encourage them, and just help them to get through the things that Satan brings their way each day, to be a stumbling block for them, so that they can draw closer to you. We're also thankful for all the opportunities we have to serve the various ministries that are going on here at Center Street. And we just pray that you'll help us to have a good attitude and a desire to serve in those ways, and to realize that that's what we're here for. We're here to help others, and that we do have a purpose. And we know, Lord, that you have planned things out in advance for each of us, so that we can utilize the talents that you've blessed us with. And we pray that we won't let those opportunities go to waste. We ask that you be with Brother Jack now as he brings us another message from your word, and that he'll present it in a way that we can understand it and use it to better ourselves for your cause. We pray that you'll forgive us when we fail in these areas, and we ask this all in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Among those families that we did introduce this morning as wanting to be a part of our church family here at Center Street formally was Andrew and Rachel Venable. They were out of town this morning, but they're here this evening. Would you mind standing for us, please, back there, in case some of you don't know who they are? That's Andrew and Rachel. And Andrew is Emily Pope's brother. Is that correct? I got that right, yes? So we're glad to have them with us as part of our church family here. Thank you very much. So get to meet them and welcome them, along with Taylor and Jessica, and of course we mentioned the Keens and others that have become part of our family recently. If I were to mention some other names, I think they would be familiar to most of you. Charlie Brown, Lucy, Snoopy. Who are we talking about? Peanuts cartoons, aren't we? We know them. These were the cartoon series from Peanuts, along with Schroeder and I can't remember all the others. The creator of that cartoon series was Charles Schulz. Charles Schulz was pretty much a theologian in his own right. He communicated his view of God through cartoons. And he says that the inspiration came to him often through his own family. For example, his youngest daughter, Jill, gave him a theory concerning prayer. We've been talking about the prayer of David from Psalm 28 tonight, so I want to just kind of expand on that somewhat. Well, here was Jill's theory of prayer, quote, "If you fold your hands upside down, you get the opposite of what you pray for." There you go. If you want the opposite of what you pray for, just fold your hands upside down and see what happens, I guess. So that was her simple understanding of prayer. And I suppose it's natural for us to conclude that there is some sort of formula for prayer. For example, I think I grew up in an environment that somehow if you prayed in the King James translation, your prayers would be heard better by God. You know, the more these and thous that I used, that God was more receptive to those words than other words. Well, you know, that at least that was what we often understood, whether it was consciously taught that way or not. Or maybe it was the way you held your hands, like Miss Jill, you know. You know, we teach our children in Rainbow School, for example, or at least when I say, you know, shake hands. I say, shake hands with yourself, kids. And you know, what I'm doing is hold your hands together. And then we know the practical side of that is so their hands won't be distracted doing other things, I suppose. But, you know, when you put your hands together like this, we immediately know that person is praying. Or that's the formula that is often assumed. Or maybe if we stood up when we prayed, or if we kneeled when we prayed. It was interesting. Again, I go back to my childhood in my home congregation, and it was our practice, our tradition, when we prayed public prayers, the congregation was asked to stand. Everybody stood, but the irony of that was that many of the men knelt. So I didn't understand they're not standing, they're kneeling. They got down on their knees. They got down on one knee. I don't know how many. I can visualize my dad when we would pray, he would get down on one knee. I don't know if any of the rest of you kind of grew up in that kind of a tradition or not, but that was sort of the idea that the posture would somehow help us in our prayer. And I guess it does create an environment and a mindset that would do so. But just how I stand or how I say things, does it really impact whether God hears us or not? Someone said, the posture of your mind is more important than the posture of your body. And that very well may have some truth to that. David knew this, I think, and as we showed from Psalms 28. Much of David's psalms, we call them psalms or songs, but we see them as prayers. And I've encouraged people, because someone encouraged me one time, when sometimes when you're praying and you really just don't know what to say, then I would suggest that maybe a help would be to go to the Psalms and read some of the Psalms of David. Read them as your own. Read those prayers. And I think you'll find that in most cases they reflect exactly what you're feeling. In many cases, even as they did David. I have never been stuck in an elevator. Has anybody ever been stuck in an elevator? Oh, we've got a couple that have, 2 or 3. You've been stuck in an elevator? What's that like? Terrifying. Okay. I've never been. It would be terrifying to me too. I've read about people and probably could hear from some of you what that's like to be stuck in an elevator. I tell you this, every time I get in an elevator, I think about being stuck in that elevator. And you kind of look around you to see who are you going to be stuck with. You know, it's always uncomfortable to be in an elevator when you're the man and there's one woman in the elevator. You know, because I know what she's thinking. She's thinking, I'm wondering if this guy's a serial killer. But that's okay, because I'm over there in the other corner thinking, I'm wondering if this woman is a serial killer. And what would happen if we were stuck in this elevator, you know? Well, I've read about what people do. Some of them begin to beat on the wall, beat on the door. Did you beat on the door, by the way? Okay, good. Or beat on the walls. Others scream, help, help, help somebody. So others just begin to cry. You know, they go into a panic mode. But hopefully there is somebody on that elevator that will quietly walk over and open up that little door and reach in there and pick up that phone, because it's connected to someone on the outside that can help rescue them. And that's what it's like when we need God. Rather than beating on something or crying or screaming, prayer is like picking up that telephone in the elevator, knowing that God is on the other end and He's there to help us and to rescue us. And God is here willing and ready to rescue you, whatever your issues are. He's willing and ready to help. He's just waiting on you to pick up the phone and say, hear me, help me, heal me. And if we can help you to know that, will you come now as together we stand and sing for your encouragement.
Come quickly. If you are unable to take the Lord's Supper this morning, it has been left prepared. So if you need to go take the Lord's Supper, you can make your way to the back. Are there any other announcements? If not, let's sing 842 together. 842, Calm and Love. After we sing this, we will be led in our closing prayer. A common love for each other, a common gift to the Savior, a common bond, holding us to the Lord, a common strength when we're weary, a common hope for tomorrow, a common joy in the truth of God's word.
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this great day that you've given us and the blessings that we've enjoyed today by coming together as a family and worshiping you, the true and living God. Pray, Father, that you go with us through this remainder of this week. And Father, we pray that our light is brighter tomorrow than it was today, and that we share your word with those that we come in contact with, Father, and we show the joy of being a servant of yours. Pray that you would be with those who are traveling and keep them safe, Father, and pray, Father, that those who are not with us today because of health reasons, that Father, we pray that you would heal them and get them back to the normal portion of health. Forgive us for our sins, Father. We pray in Christ's name. Amen.